Welcome to the Think Generational Wealth podcast. And this is episode number 69. 69 episodes. I am your host, Amir Estimo. In today's episode, we will be discussing about the four quadrants. And this is important to know. Why is it important to know which side are you on and how you can get to the other side, from the left to right side. So, So today's episode is inspired by the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. Now, many of you know, a lot of people, this is probably one of the books that, if you listen to a lot of podcasts or even interviews, a lot of people mention this book. This book was a life changer and also controversial. So today I wanted to bring up this book because most recently I read this book. This was my second time reading this book in probably, I would say 2 to 3 years. I haven't read this book in a very long time, and probably even longer than that. But I can honestly say this book, reading it the second time around, made me realize how much I didn't read it the first time, if that makes sense. Because I picked up so much more from this book because I gained a little bit more knowledge. And as I read that book, it was like, oh my, I didn't remember him talking about this. So it really made me feel that I didn't quite really grasp the book as much as I thought, but I understood the core message at the time. So this book helped me realize, even for now, as I'm going through that transition again, from looking to go into employee to entrepreneurship, it put some things in perspective. So I would highly recommend this book. He has a Rich Dad series. There's a variety of books he has, but the three that I've read so far is Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Cash Flow Quadrant, which goes more in depth of the four quadrants, and Before You Quit Your Job, which means before you go into entrepreneurship, you quit your job. This gives you the hard truth of what it is to be an entrepreneur. So let's jump right into this episode. But before that, if you have a chance, please give your boy a 5-star rating or leave a rating review the podcast. If you enjoy the content, share it. Subscribe to the podcast, as the goal is to drop the podcast every single Wednesday, 5 a.m. Central. Also, too, I am Haitian American. One thing I wanted to do, as me being descendant of Haitian parents, immigrants, is that I wanted to share one word from our culture. I know a lot of times if you hear the news, the media, you hear a lot of bad things about Haiti and whatnot, but we're also a country very prideful. We're also a beautiful country. There is parts of the country, just like everywhere in the world, you're going to have your good and your bad. That's what it is. But this also, we are a country. We're very prideful. We're very hard workers. So I wanted to share one word every episode that you can learn from Haitian Creole. And today's word is sac passe, meaning what's up. Again, sac passe. So if you see a Haitian or you know anybody that's Haitian, you can say, hey, sac passe. And they're going to tell you, not boule, means I'm good, I'm great, it's great. So the word of the day is sac passe. Okay, so let's jump into today's episode. So today's episode, we have four quadrants. Now, Robert Kiyosaki mentions the four quadrants are, you have, on the left side, you have your E as an employee, your S, self-employed. On the right side, you have business, which is B, and then I, which is investor. Now, Robert Kiyosaki says the true way to wealth is being on the right side of the quadrant. Now, keep this in perspective. You don't have to be basically pigeonholed into one quadrant. You can actually be an E quadrant and then be in the B and I also, meaning you own your own business, and then also you're an investor. You can be in the S quadrant, and then you can be in the B quadrant and the I quadrant. Now, an example of someone in the E quadrant would be like you and I, whoever's listening to this podcast, who has a corporate job. Now, that means someone is paying you for your time. So every 2 weeks, whatever that is, you get paid. Someone pays you for whether your skill set and your time. Now, in the S quadrant is someone that's self-employed, an electrician, a plumber. That would be considered someone in the S quadrant. That means they work for themselves, right? So that would be even a carpenter. That's someone that's an example of the S, self-employed. Someone that's in the B quadrant means they own their own business. So maybe they have their own real estate business. They have their own e-commerce business, or they have any business that they own. That's someone that's in the B quadrant. Now, someone that's in the I quadrant is someone that's an investor. Now, you could be investing in crypto, stocks, NFTs, all the anything that's an investment. Maybe you invest in REITs, which is real estate trust fund, real estate trust fund. I think I may have get that wrong, but REITs. So that's someone that's in the I. Okay. Now let's go over. Now the left quadrant. The reason why Robert Kiyosaki mentions in the left quadrant why it's not that easy really to build wealth in the left quadrant, and let's be real, it's really not that easy. It's because of that. If you're in the left quadrant, that means the government, when you get paid, they take the tax and then they hand you whatever that's left. I had to learn this hard truth at the age of 15. I'll share a quick story. I remember when my first job at 15 years old, I worked at this fast food restaurant, getting paid, I think it was at the time, $5.50 an hour. That goes to show you how far has minimum wage came from, right? So $5.50 an hour. I remember I worked 40 hours going to school. It was during the summer. I think it was during the summertime. And I didn't want to spend my summer. I was like, you know what, I'm going to get a job. I didn't want to spend my summer just sitting around doing nothing. So I went and got a job. So I remember that summer, there was this 2 week span, I worked like 40 hours and I was excited. I was doing the math, doing 40 times 550. Listen, I'm about to get paid. $200, $300 to a 15-year-old is a lot of money. So I get paid. I want to go pick up my paycheck. And back in then, we didn't have what we call direct deposit. Those things didn't exist until maybe a year or two later. And then I said, oh my gosh, I got my paycheck. I want to go open it up. Open the paycheck, look, I'm like, oh, whoa, something's wrong. The math didn't add up right. So I called my manager. I said, hey, who are these people? Who's federal tax? Who is Medicaid? Who is Social Security? Are you in cahoots with these people? Who are these people? And she laughed. She literally laughed. I remember the time she was a smoker. She had the cigarette and she coughed the cigarette out and she just burst out laughing. She said, Amir, you gotta pay taxes. I said, taxes? What the heck is that? Why am I paying taxes? I'm only 15. She said, once you start earning income, you pay taxes. Well, I didn't learn that in school. And obviously having Haitian immigrant parents, they didn't understand that because when they came here in the country, they were really just trying to learn the language and they were just happy to have anything better than what they had in their home country. So I learned that, man, when you get paid, the government takes taxes from you. So fast forward years down the road, and I remember I was working overtime, and here I am killing it overtime, over 80 hours, almost 90 hours, make 10 extra hours of overtime, and they taxed me even more. That's when I learned again, the more money you make, the more they take out. So when I first read this book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, and Robert Kiyosaki went over that concept, it made sense because what the government do is whatever you get paid, they take that money. They take the money you made. Uncle Sam says, oh, hold up, Amir. You got paid. We see that. You got paid. Now it's time to take a little bit of that money. And as you raise up an income, sometimes you raise in different tax brackets. First, you could probably be in the 15% at a certain income, right? Then you go into 16, 17, and so on. So the more money you make, the more they take out of taxes, okay? Even for me, even for me, I truly thought that was unfair. But that's how the system rolls, right? So you just have to just go with the system. So when you're in the left side quadrant, you don't have as much tax breaks as you would if you're on the right side of the quadrant. So the left side quadrant as an employee, that's why if you see most employees, what they do is they put money in things like IRAs and 401ks to lower their tax bracket or lower the taxable income. So if you're someone, let's say, I think the max you can put into 401k, I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's like 19,000 right now. So let's say, for instance, you made $70,000, 19,000 in tax. Let's say you max out your 401k, that's $19,000. The government can only tax you on $51,000. They can't tax you on 70. That's why if you're on the left side of quadrant, you don't have as much tax breaks as you would on the right side. Now let's go to someone that's on the right side of the quadrant. In 2018, Amazon paid zero federal income tax. There was such an outrage of that because here, let's say you're a teacher or you're an employee, you're paying 20% in federal tax, and here it is you have this corporation paying zero. Obviously, they find a lot of tax loopholes to not pay taxes, but also you look at that as unfair. I think I was probably one of the people that looked at that and said, wait, okay, if Amazon a giant, and you think about it, the government gives Amazon more tax breaks because what is Amazon doing? Amazon is supplying jobs in the workforce. So when you see the government, it don't matter what party's in office, but when you see the government sends out these new jobs are created every single month, or they say January 400,000 new jobs are created, guess what? The government likes that. They love stuff like that because they're saying, oh, Amazon. Now, I'm only using Amazon example. Now, I'm not into, hey, how they treat their people. That's not what this is about. What this is about is you look at 2018, 2019, and I think most recently in 2020, Amazon finally started paying taxes. Now, when you have the Biden administration called out Amazon, I think it was sometime last year, they called out Amazon for paying zero taxes. And now that's why Biden is looking to push for a higher corporate tax rate. So some of these companies who's not paying taxes or not paying enough taxes start getting taxed at a higher rate. But instead of saying, wait, Amazon is paying less taxes, getting upset about it, why don't you see what they're doing or fault? You got to see what the rich are doing, because if you don't, you can sit there and get mad all you want. But at the end of the day, that's how the system is set up currently. So for you, if you don't want to pay as much taxes, what do? If you're in the E quadrant currently, you want to be able to pay less taxes, what do? You can go start your own business or you can invest. Now, Robert Kiyosaki says it's really good to be an investor on the right side of the quadrant first, then go and start your own business. Because as you have, let's say what you have reserves or cash, like that's just sitting around doing nothing, you can actually take that money and invest it. Now, when you invest your money, let's say you buy some stocks in Apple, Amazon, Tesla, whatever, you actually buy a piece of that business. You actually become what they call a shareholder. And when Amazon makes these moves, they have to be able to let their shareholders know too, because Amazon works for you as a shareholder. That's why if you look at it, I own some stocks in certain companies, and I get what they call a shareholder report. So the company like Robinhood, the platform, will say, okay, the reportings are coming out, or here's the shareholder. And there are certain meetings that they invite you to as a shareholder, even if you own one share of that company, that's better than owning zero. Because you think about it, let's say, that stock is $10 a share. Now that stock goes up to $50 a share. That's an extra $40 you made versus someone who didn't invest at all. That's zero 40. You see what I'm saying? So if you think about it, when you're on that investor, that the right side of quadrant, you don't get taxed as much compared to someone that's just on the left side. Someone that's self-employed, they get taxed just as much as someone that's an E quadrant. Someone that's in the B quadrant don't get taxed as much as someone that's in the E and S quadrant. So that's why it's very important to move over from the left side of the quadrant to the right side of the quadrant. Now, there was a article I read back, I think last year, sometimes last year, was what some people were doing actually, since we've been in this pandemic now for 2 years, and most people have been working from home. What actually some people were doing, especially me being in the IT field, is they're actually getting a second job. So how do they make this work? So let's say, for example, let's say you're on the Eastern time zone. Let's say your company works Eastern. So let's say it's 8 to 5, right? So from 8 to 5, you're Eastern. But let's say the other job that you have is on the West Coast. So that means on the East Coast, you're 3 hours behind. So by the time you even start your second job, you're actually starting it at 11 Eastern, and the job started at 8 West Coast time. So what people were doing is they were actually doubling their salary. Now you think, wow, that is smart. Now you got two jobs, because now you're not out of work what, 8 o'clock at night, right? And you're making now double salary. That's great. There was even one article, a couple that did that. They were in IT. The husband and wife end up making almost $400,000 during this time. But here's the problem. What quadrant are you in? You're in the left side of the quadrant. And yeah, you're making more money. That's great. But guess what? Now you just went up to another tax. You went up to another tax bracket. And not only that, now you're getting taxed even more. So as smart as that looks, right? Because now you're earning more money, it really doesn't help you at the same time too, because you're now paying more in taxes. So you could have been at the 20% tax rate. Now, because now you got to add that second job, you're probably, I don't know, I think the max is like 37%. Someone can fact check me. And now you're paying more in taxes. What you could have did probably was go and start your own business. There was more businesses start in 2020 in the last couple of years before. Because people are realizing since this pandemic happened that I need I cannot count on my 9-to-5 job anymore, or my 9-to-5 job is not paying me enough. So I need to be able to figure out other ways now to make money in case my 9-to-5 job comes to me and gives me a pink slip and tell me I'm gone. Because a lot of people during this pandemic too lost their jobs. But with that being said, with a lot of people losing their jobs, people realize I can go and start my own business. This is a great opportunity to push myself into entrepreneurship and get onto that right side of the quadrant, which is where that B and I, which is where you can build wealth. So with that being said, for us to build wealth, you can't build wealth working for someone. That's just, it doesn't happen. Now, if it does, more power to you, and maybe you can hit me up and then you can tell us how that's happening. But from my understanding, you cannot build wealth if you're on that left side of quadrant. To build wealth, you need to be able to have stuff. You got to be able, it's not about how much money you make, it's how much money you keep. So you can make a lot of money, but if you're not keeping a lot of it too, how are you using whatever that extra money you have to go and build wealth? And there's various ways you can go and start your own business. I think network marketing is a great opportunity. I know a lot of people may talk down on it and say, oh, it's a scheme and all this extra negative connotation to it. But let me tell you, if you have a 9-to-5 job, you're in a scheme itself. I I was dumbfounded recently because my job and my 9 to 5, they have all these positions. Before you actually get to the CEO, there's all these several level positions. You who are at the bottom, there's like 20 other positions that's ahead of you before it gets to the CEO. And I thought to myself, I was like, how is that any different than someone that's in network marketing that's starting their own business? Sometimes it's so easy to think about and say these things, but you have to think of yourself and say, wait, I'm in the same boat. A 9 to 5 job, that's you're in a pyramid scheme itself. Now, I don't want to use that's not, excuse me, that's not the word I really want to use, but that's where it gets thrown out a lot. That network marketing, it's a pyramid scheme. Oh, they just want to do this and that. Someone else has made, yes, obviously. Someone started a business and then you come and work for them. I would never want anybody, and I repeat, anybody that comes and work for me to sit around unless you enjoy working for me. But even then, I would push you to go and build your own wealth. This should be very temporary. This should not be a permanent thing. So think about it this way, folks, is if you're on the left side of the quadrant, you got to think you're paying the most taxes on that left side of the quadrant. You cannot get mad when some of these corporations are paying less taxes than you. You need to evaluate your situation and say, okay, if Amazon's Jeff Bezos owner, he's not paying his state, how is he doing it? Well, let's see how is he doing it. Pick up a book, read a book on taxes. Understand because it's not going to happen by you working for someone. Anybody on the left side of the quadrant, it's not going to happen. But you got to figure out whether it's network marketing, starting your own business. What are you passionate about? What drives you? If you were not to get paid, would you enjoy doing it? That's how you would want to start. That's how you want to be. What would drive you from that left side to the right side of the quadrant where you cannot pay as much taxes, where you can lower your taxable income, where you can use some of that money and invest and get into the I quadrant and invest more into your business. I know not everybody can be an entrepreneur, and I know not everybody could be a business owner. I understand that. But everybody can be an investor. You can buy one share of stock in a company instead of leaving your money in a bank earning 0.0001%. When every quarter or whatever it is they give you, or every month they give you 1 cent. That was the most alarming thing for me one time, is when I went to a bank and I say, okay, if I have this money, I want to put this money into an account. In 10 years, how much will it be? The guy showed me this math, and then I saw $10. So you telling me my money grows $10 in 10 years? That's $1 a year. And the moment you take that money out, that actually now it's not even $1. I was so flabbergasted. I said, whoa, that just absolutely makes no sense. And people actually do this. But people will say, if you invest your money into the stock market, the stock market is volatile. It goes up and down, right? It goes, 1 minute's up, 1 minute's down, but it's always been like that. So you're telling me you'd rather leave your money in the bank where they're only going to insure up to $100,000 and versus putting your money in the stock market, where if you educate yourself, you gain financial literacy, you can actually make way more money and you get higher returns on your money. Or you take your money and put it into a 401k. Yeah, you want to lessen your taxable, and I get it. I do the same thing. I take advantage of a 401k too. I'm not going to be a hypocrite. But at the same time, I take my money and invest it into stocks, crypto. And soon I'm learning now about NFTs. And the reason I haven't got onto the podcast and discussed that yet is because I'm not 100% knowledgeable enough to really share enough information. I know some about crypto and I know about stocks, but I don't know about NFTs enough yet. That's another avenue now where people are getting wealthy, is in NFTs. Now, is that here to stay? I don't know. People said that about crypto, and look at it. Crypto Is it's 1 minute it's up, it's still around. To the point now the government wants to figure out a way how they can regulate it. Right? So don't be scared, folks. I know the right side of the quadrant, it's scary. A lot of people, you get scared, you get comfortable because you're on the left side, someone's paying you every 2 weeks and you're enjoying seeing a paycheck. But eventually, what if your job comes to you and tells you, hey, sir or ma'am, you no longer have a role here in this company? Where do you go? If you have nothing in the right side of quadrant, how do you survive? You go back and look for another job. But what if the market is bare? How if you, a man or a woman, are going to be able to go to your family and tell your family you no longer have a job? You don't want someone to control your destiny. You don't want that. This is what think generational wealth's about, because you want to be able to build wealth. So even something like that happens, you're educated enough to know that, maybe it's time for me to go start my own business. Or maybe it's because I got so, excuse me, so much investments that I can withstand not working for a year or two. However, whatever that looks like to you. You should be doing that anyways. They say less than 50, or I think it's 60% of the country, right, has less than $1,000 in their savings account. That goes to show you, we in this country, in the U.S., how much we spend. I saw an article the other day. It was saying that how much black spending has went up. Black people were spending more money, but our net worth fell. Our net worth has went down. The optics behind that don't add up. And that tells you because we're spending money on such nonsense that we're not taking money and we're actually growing wealth. We're not educating ourselves enough to grow wealth. So we're going to always be on the E quadrant, the S quadrant. And the reason 401k, that stuff is around, is because the government don't trust us. Do you think when you're in your age of retirement, the government wants to send you a check every single month? The government don't want to do that. That's why they create programs like 401k, and they say, hey, you can't take this money until you hit a certain age. And if you do take this money before you hit the certain age, guess what happens? We're going to tax you. So you're going to tax me on my money? Because the government don't trust us enough, because they know we like to spend. And by the time you hit retirement, guess what? You're relying on the government to send you some Social Security check. That's probably not going to, if you're a millennial or I know it's Gen Y or something like that, that's not going to be around by the time we're at the age of retirement. So what are you going to do then? That's why it's imperative that we get onto that right side of the quadrant. Okay? So hopefully that helps. If you enjoy this content, please again subscribe to the content. My goal is to drop a podcast every single week. I just thought this was very interesting. This book, again, it's called The Rich Dad Poor Dad. But if you really want to know more about the cash flow quadrant, which is what Robert Kiyosaki talks about, read Cash Flow Quadrant. That's the second book. That book is Rich Dad on Poor Dad on steroids, because he goes so much more in depth into that book. So if you enjoy this content, enjoy this episode today, like and share the podcast. But I really enjoyed this I really enjoyed, like, financial literacy to me, like reading that article about how black spending is up, but then our net worth has decreased. It was really an eye opener. And it goes to show you how much far we got to go, where financial literacy is not important to some of us, and how most Americans, almost 60% of Americans, have less than $1,000 in their account. That is crazy. $1,000, anybody can have that. But if you're not financial literate, you're not going to understand the importance of having some savings account, having an emergency fund, 6 to 8, 6 to 9 months of emergency fund. Because imagine in 2020, and I'll leave you at this. I had a good friend of mine, I would say. When we came in to our job together as contractors at the time. And last year he was let go. And I could tell you that it really pained me, because I remember in 2020, the company announced, oh, we're not going to lay no one off, yada, yada, yada. And that was their thing, their spiel. Soon as 2021 came around, guess what they did? They downsized some of these departments, and then they let people go. And it bothered me. It made me realize, like, this is why I went and started my own business. And this is why it pushed for me, even if it was $100 or $50, to put it into investments. Because you never know when they're going to come to you. Because the only person that really can get fired is the CEO. And I'm telling you, if the CEO, even the CEO at one point can get fired, because if he has a shareholders and board and he's not doing a good job, they can vote him out. So that's why even the CEO can get fired. Unless you're the owner of the company, that's the only person that cannot get fired. And it really showed how cutthroat companies are. They will sit there and tell you these things, say, hey, we look at these earnings and yada, yada. And then next year or next month or next week, you're not around. So we have to figure out how to get ourselves to that right side of the quadrant and not just spend, because all the spending is doing us no good. Because now how we're passing knowledge to the next generation, we're just passing bad habits. If we don't take the time, someone don't stop the bleeding. Someone don't raise their hand and say, hey, we got to stop this. It's only going to continue and continue for generations and generations to come. But it's going to be up to someone to stop the bleeding. And right now we're bleeding because we are not taking the time. We'd rather have $300 Michael Kors purse versus investing in Michael Kors. Right? We rather go and, spend crazy on a credit card to impress people who don't care about us. Social media is good and bad. I'm not going to be one of those people and say it's all bad. No, it's not, because there's a lot of people out there using social media and making a lot of money. But there's also a lot of people on there that's, if you look at the mirror, it's not real. It's not real. So don't see everything what you see on social media and see someone taking lavish trips and all that. But if you were to take their financials, zero, negative. Net worth, negative, right? Because our priorities are out of order. So how do we get to the right side of the quadrant? Number one is being financially literate. Educate yourself, right? And take action. You cannot take action on things you don't know. Once you have some information, take action. The rest will follow. You will learn as you go. Start a business, invest. Those are things that's going to build wealth. Okay, your business fails, start another business. Your business fails, start another business. Keep going until you will find something that works. If it's your true passion, you will find something that works. But it will not work if you don't take action. If you don't push yourself. If you don't educate yourself. Educate your children. Teach them the importance of being financially literate. Teach them if they have $1, it's okay to spend 50 cents, but put that other 50 cents away. Okay? And thank you for taking the time to listen to this episode. I appreciate anybody that takes their time to listen to the episode, because you could be doing anything in the world, but the fact that you're taking the time to listening to this, I much appreciate this. Okay? Until next week, much love. And to leave you guys with quote of the day. This is, instead of resisting to changes, surrender. Let life be with you, not against you. Shams Tabrazi. See you next week.